My older brother destroyed my life, and now he wants to act like we're best friends again. When I was 12, my mom got heartbreaking news. The eggs she'd frozen were no longer viable. She couldn't have another baby. I didn't want a sibling anyway. I asked her, "Am I not enough for you?" She always reassured me. But deep down, I hoped we'd never end up with another child in the house. And for a while, it looked like we wouldn't. Then one of her friends found a toddler, completely alone, crying, left on her doorstep. The woman already had 3 kids and couldn't take on another, so she asked my mom to help, just for the night. My mom said yes. That night turned into forever. We adopted her. Her name was Daisy. At first I adored her. She was 3, fun, bright, curious. I taught her how to tie her laces, we built pillow forts, invented secret handshakes. For the first time, I felt like I had a real friend in the house, a real sibling. Because even though I technically had a brother, he never treated me like family. When I was little, he'd shove me away whenever I wanted to play. He'd break my toys on purpose, saying it was to make me tough. And I never told our mom because, as twisted as it sounds, I admired him. I wanted his approval more than anything. Then one afternoon, Trevor, that's my brother, pulled me aside. He asked if I'd noticed anything different about Daisy compared to us. I joked, "She's funnier," but he looked me dead in the eye and said something I'll never forget. Something filled with hate that I didn't even fully understand at the time. He spoke with cold certainty, using words no kid should ever hear. He said Daisy was dangerous, that people like her always caused harm. Then he said something even worse. "Adults don't like it when boys hurt girls, so you have to be the one." He pulled me into a hug and said he was proud of me, that I was strong, and I believed him. I wanted to make him proud. That was the moment something in me shifted. I didn't know how to do what he wanted exactly, but I started acting out in the only way I understood. I'd pinch Daisy when she didn't listen, whisper awful lies when Mom wasn't around, tell her that Mom didn't love her, that if she spoke too much, she'd be sent back. By the time she turned 4, Daisy was quiet, distant, completely different. She followed every command I gave her, and every time I hurt her, my brother praised me. He'd say I was protecting our family. Deep down, I knew it was wrong. But the way he looked at me made me feel like it didn't matter, until everything fell apart. One afternoon, I broke all of Daisy's toys, just like my brother used to do to me. I thought Mom wouldn't notice. She was always busy. But that day, she came home early, and Daisy was crying loud. Panicked, I tried to stop her. I went too far. I didn't realize how bad it was until I saw the red drops on the floor. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Our mom walking in, holding a plate of fruit. When she saw Daisy, her face turned to ash. I didn't even notice Daisy had lost consciousness until Mom screamed. Then my brother stepped into the room. And I did something I regret to this day. I turned to him and shouted, "Why did you make me do this?" But he didn't back me up. He looked at my mom and said, "She's dangerous." He meant me. The paramedics arrived. Daisy was rushed to the hospital, and I watched everything fall apart, flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the window. It was the police. They took me in and started asking questions, but I could already feel it. They didn't believe me. And when they stepped outside to talk to my mom, my worst fear was confirmed. I peeked through the narrow window just in time to see one of the officers hugging Trevor and calling him the man of the house. And he just stood there smirking. That night, they placed me in juvenile detention. I'd never felt so small, so alone. The room was cold, bare, a metal bed with a thin mattress. No warmth, no comfort. I couldn't sleep. All I saw every time I closed my eyes was Daisy's face when I hurt her. I kept replaying the blood, bright red on the beige carpet. I heard Mom's scream echoing in my ears, and I felt Trevor's arms around me again, telling me he was proud. The next morning, a woman named Ms. Barbara came to see me. She introduced herself as my caseworker. She wore thick glasses and spoke slowly, like she thought I couldn't understand. She asked me what happened with Daisy. I told her everything. About Trevor, about how he'd told me to hurt Daisy, about how he used to break my toys when I was little, how badly I wanted him to like me. She didn't say much, but I saw the way her hand tightened around her pen as I talked. Her face stayed still, but her knuckles turned white. After I was done, she nodded, said she had to speak to some people, and left, the heavy door clicking shut behind her. Later that day, they moved me to a different facility. This one had more kids my age. A cafeteria that smelled like overcooked vegetables and shared rooms. I didn't speak to anyone. I kept to myself, curled up in the corner, eyes locked on the floor. A boy named Kendall tried to talk to me once during lunch, but I couldn't answer. My stomach was twisted. Even looking at the food made me nauseous. 3 days passed before I saw my mom again. The second she walked into the visiting room, I burst into tears. I ran to her, clinging to her like I used to, but she didn't hug me back. Not right away. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair messy, her clothes wrinkled. She looked exhausted. When she finally did wrap her arms around me, it felt distant, like she didn't recognize me anymore. She told me Daisy was going to be okay. She had a concussion, a few bruises, but she'd heal. That brought me a little relief, until she told me the rest. Trevor had shown her fake text messages. Messages where I supposedly said I was planning to hurt Daisy. Messages I never wrote. Mom believed them. So did the police. Trevor said he'd been trying to stop me for weeks. He made himself look like a hero, like the responsible big brother trying to protect his little sister from someone unstable. I begged Mom to believe me, told her Trevor faked it all. But the guard standing nearby shifted his weight and Mom just hushed me, told me we had to stay calm. Trevor had reported me before anything worse could happen. Everyone believed him, because he was older, because he was about to go to college, because he was seen as the golden child. And I was just the messed up middle kid who'd gone too far. After she left, I sat in my room for hours, trying to figure out what to do. Who would believe someone like me? I'd already admitted to hurting Daisy. I felt completely trapped. I stared at the ceiling, counting water stains, trying not to cry. The next day, Ms. Barbara came back, and this time, she brought someone with her. Dr. Peter, a child psychologist. He had soft eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a calm voice that didn't make me feel judged. They brought me to a quiet room with comfy chairs and asked me to start from the beginning. So I did. I told them about Trevor, about the way he used to treat me, how he'd hit me when no one was looking, how he'd break my toys and laugh when I cried, how he would pinch me under the dinner table if I talked too much, how I spent years just trying to earn his approval. As I spoke, Dr. Peter kept nodding. Sometimes he asked me to explain more. I noticed Ms. Barbara was recording the conversation, the small red light blinking steadily on her phone. And when I finally stopped talking, Dr. Peter asked me something I hadn't expected. Do you think Trevor might have been jealous of your bond with Daisy? I froze. I had never even thought about that. But maybe that was it. Maybe he couldn't stand seeing me happy with someone else. Maybe he had to destroy it. That night, I slept for the first time in days. Not because everything was okay, but because telling the truth out loud made me feel a little less alone. I dreamed of Daisy and me, building blanket forts again, safe in our own little world. The next morning, I got a surprise visitor. It was Officer Charlotte, one of the cops who had been at our house that day, the one who didn't hug Trevor. She walked in with Ms. Barbara and sat down. They said they had more questions, this time about the text messages Trevor had shown the police. Officer Charlotte laid out a stack of printed screenshots on the table. According to those, I had messaged Trevor, saying awful, hateful things about Daisy, calling her names, talking about hurting her, saying she didn't belong in our family because of her skin color. Just reading them made me feel sick. I didn't write any of this, I told them again. I don't even have Trevor's number saved. Officer Charlotte raised an eyebrow. You don't have your own brother's number? I shook my head. He never gave it to me. Said he didn't want me bothering him. That got their attention. They started asking more about my phone, when I got it, if Trevor ever had access, whether I left it around the house. I told them Mom gave it to me for my birthday a couple of months ago. I didn't use a password. Mom didn't like the idea of us keeping secrets. They exchanged a look. One of those quiet moments where you know something just shifted. And then Officer Charlotte asked if I'd be okay with them checking the phone. I agreed right away. Anything to prove I was telling the truth. Later that day, my mom brought the phone in. Officer Charlotte said their tech specialist would take a look. I didn't really understand what that meant, but I hoped it would help. Maybe there was a way they could prove those messages weren't mine. 2 more days passed. In that time, I started opening up a little. Some of the other kids had their own stories. Kendall, the boy who'd tried to talk to me earlier, told me he'd been caught stealing food for his little sisters. His mom was sick and couldn't work. I'd misjudged him. We started sitting together at meals. Sometimes he even made me laugh. On the 5th day, Miss Barbara came to get me again. This time, another woman was with her. Bright red curly hair, yellow blouse that stood out way too much in the gray room. She introduced herself as Virginia, my court-appointed guardian ad litem. Her job was to make sure my voice was heard in court. She looked serious, but not cold. When she spoke, she used a tone that didn't make me feel like a criminal. She said the tech team had found something. Something big. The messages? They weren't sent from my phone's messaging app. They were created on a website, one that lets you generate fake text conversations and screenshot them to make them look real. Virginia laid out documents with all the technical stuff. I didn't understand most of it. But couldn't I have just used that website myself? I asked quietly. That's when she smiled. A soft, genuine smile that made her whole face light up. That's the part that matters, she said. The website logs the IP addresses of every device that accesses it. The messages were created from a computer in your house, while you were at school. We verified your attendance. You weren't even home. My heart slammed against my chest. So Trevor really did fake them. I told you, I said, my voice cracking from the pressure I'd been holding in. He set me up. Ms. Barbara gently lifted her hand. We're still looking into everything, she said. But this helps. It backs up parts of what you told us. They kept asking questions. About Trevor, about things he'd said or done, about anything that could help them understand. I told them everything I could remember. The rude comments he'd mutter at the mall, the password-protected computer, the friend with the truck covered in offensive stickers, and I told them about the way he treated me. Not just the bad moments, but the times he seemed kind. The times he bought me ice cream after I made Daisy cry. The gifts he gave me, a new game, fancy headphones, always right after I'd done something cruel. I hadn't seen it before, but now the pattern was obvious. He was rewarding me for hurting her. When the meeting ended, I went back to my room and sat on the bed for a long time, just hugging my knees and breathing. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt the smallest flicker of hope. Maybe the truth was finally coming to the surface. Maybe I wasn't the only one who would be held accountable. And just for a moment, I let myself picture going home. The next morning, I let myself imagine what it might feel like to see Daisy again. To say I was sorry and maybe somehow start making things right. Later that day, I got a visitor. It was Julia, my mom's friend, the one caring for Daisy. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled into a messy ponytail, and a nervous habit of twisting her wedding ring as she spoke. She smelled faintly of baby powder and cinnamon, two scents that reminded me so much of home it made my throat tighten. Daisy misses you, she said softly. She asks when you're coming home. She made this for you. She handed me a wrinkled piece of paper, a child's drawing in crayon. 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands in a field of scribbled flowers. My hands trembled as I held it. She doesn't hate me, I whispered, voice cracking. Julia shook her head. She's confused, she said gently. But she told me something yesterday. Something important. She paused, her expression hardening. She said Trevor once gave her candy and told her not to say anything. He said if she ever told your mom what you did to her, she'd be taken away. Forever. My heart dropped. He threatened her too. All this time? He'd been controlling both of us. Julia nodded. I've already told the police. They're arranging for a specialist. Someone trained to talk to children. Someone who can help Daisy explain what happened without putting words in her mouth. We talked for a while longer. Julia told me Daisy was having nightmares, but was adjusting. She played with Julia's kids, watched cartoons, and still asked about me every day. Her asking about me, after everything, filled me with both warmth and guilt. After Julia left, my thoughts wouldn't stop racing. Trevor had set all of this in motion, twisting things, pushing me, frightening Daisy into silence, all while painting himself as the hero. It was deeper, more deliberate than I had ever realized. That night, sleep wouldn't come. The thin mattress felt like stone beneath me. My mind circled back to every moment Trevor had praised me, right after I'd done something cruel. Every time he said I was protecting the family or called me his good soldier, or gave me gifts to reward the worst parts of myself. One memory hit hard. A year ago, Daisy had accidentally ruined a school art project I was working on. She was only 3. I was upset, but she didn't mean to do it. Trevor found me crying and said I should teach her a lesson. He convinced me to cut up her favorite stuffed elephant. The purple one she carried everywhere. Her face when she found it. I'll never forget it. The next day, Trevor gave me a new set of expensive markers. You earned them, he said. You stood up for yourself. I didn't realize until now how manipulated I'd been. The following morning, Officer Charlotte returned with Ms. Barbara. This time, Officer Charlotte wasn't just professional. She was hopeful. A small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. They told me they'd interviewed Daisy with a child psychologist. She had confirmed what Julia said, that Trevor had scared her into staying quiet. She'd also shared that he used to hurt her when no one was looking, and then blame me when she cried. And we've also looked into Trevor's computer, Officer Charlotte added. Your mother gave us permission to search his room. They didn't go into detail, but their expressions said enough. Ms. Barbara mentioned some disturbing online activity, things related to harmful ideas and toxic forums. I didn't understand all of it, but one thing was clear. They were starting to see Trevor the way I had for years. Not the perfect son, but the boy who wore a mask and made sure no one ever saw what was underneath. What happens now? I asked, trying to stay calm despite the sudden flood of hope. There will be serious conversations with the prosecutor, Ms. Barbara said. This new evidence changes a lot. And then came the moment I'd been dreaming of. They said I could go home. Not forever, not yet. There would still be a hearing. But for now, I could live with my mom, under supervision. I was so overwhelmed I hugged Ms. Barbara. I don't think she expected that. She stiffened, then gave me a few awkward pats on the back. When Mom came to pick me up, she looked different. Tired, yes, but stronger. Her eyes were sharper. Her clothes hung looser, like she'd lost weight. But her posture was steady. She looked like someone who had been through a storm and was ready to fight her way out. She hugged me tightly and whispered, I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I should have known. I couldn't hold it in. I just cried into her shoulder, overwhelmed by relief. Her familiar scent, vanilla lotion and coffee, wrapped around me like a blanket. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt safe. The ride home was quiet. Outside the window, autumn was painting the world in reds and golds. The sky was a crisp October blue. Mom told me Trevor had been sent to stay with Uncle Bruce while the investigation continued. She also said Daisy would be coming home tomorrow. My chest tightened at the thought. I wanted to see her, but I was scared too. Julia's been helping her understand, Mom said, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white, helping her see that Trevor manipulated you too. Then she added, they found the fake texts on Trevor's computer, along with other things. Her voice cracked slightly. Things I never thought he was capable of. You didn't know, I said softly. He made sure you didn't. As we pulled into our street, everything looked familiar. The same trees, the same houses, but it all felt different. When I stepped inside, I noticed little things. The old blue couch with the coffee stain, the wall of family photos. But the picture of Trevor in his football uniform was gone. In its place was a photo of Daisy and me at the park last summer, laughing with sticky ice cream faces. I stood in the doorway of my room, just staring. Everything was as I left it. Purple bedspread, posters on the wall, shelves packed with fantasy books and manga. But I wasn't the same girl who used to live here. That girl didn't know how far someone's influence could reach, or how easily trust could be turned into something dangerous. That night, Mom sat on the edge of my bed and gently ran her fingers through my hair, just like when I was little. The motion was comforting, familiar, like being reminded of who I used to be before everything changed. She told me more about what the police had found. Online forums, messages Trevor had sent to friends about Daisy, about me, even a journal where he wrote about how much he resented our bond. He said he was teaching you a lesson, she whispered. He called it a project, turning you against her. Tears streamed down my face. I should have known. I should have stopped him. You were 12, she said, her voice firm, and he's been manipulating people for years. This isn't your fault. She paused, wiping her own tears away. I should have seen it sooner. All the times he hurt you when I wasn't looking. I was so busy trying to hold everything together after your dad left. And he knew how to hide it, and he did. The moment we heard Mom's car in the driveway, Trevor would shift, from cold and controlling to smiling and sweet, like flipping a switch. We stayed up late talking. Mom said Trevor wouldn't be going to college that fall. His acceptance had been withdrawn after the school was informed about the investigation. She also said juvenile charges were being considered, depending on what the prosecutor decided. What about me? I asked, the question I'd been dreading. Will I be in trouble too? For what I did? Mom took my hand. You did hurt Daisy, she said gently. That matters. But they know you were being manipulated. The investigators are taking all of it into account. That night, I slept. Not perfectly, but better. No nightmares, no yelling, just sleep. I still felt guilt. But at least now, someone knew the truth. The next day, Julia brought Daisy home. I hid upstairs at first, my stomach twisted in knots. I could hear her voice downstairs, high-pitched and curious as ever. Why is that picture gone? Can I have apple juice? When is she coming down? Finally, Mom called me down. Daisy was sitting on the couch, legs swinging above the floor. Her curls had been freshly trimmed, framing her face. A small bandage sat on her forehead. Bruises, though fading, still marked her arms. Reminders of everything I wanted to take back. Hi, I said, barely above a whisper, frozen in the doorway. My heart pounded so loudly it felt like the whole room could hear it. Daisy looked up at me with her big brown eyes. Julia says Trevor was being a bad person, and he made you be mean to me. Her voice was simple, direct, the way only kids can be when they're telling the truth. I nodded, tears welling again. I'm so sorry, Daisy. I should have been the one protecting you. My voice cracked on the final word, but before I could say anything more, Daisy slid off the couch and walked toward me. For one terrifying second, I thought she might yell, push me away, anything to let me know how much she hated me, but instead, she simply reached for my hand. Her fingers were sticky, apple juice probably. Trevor was mean to me too, she said softly. He said scary things when no one was watching. I dropped to my knees so we were eye to eye. I promise, I said, voice trembling, I'll never hurt you again. And I won't let anyone else hurt you either. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding whether she believed me. Then she gave a tiny nod. Okay, can we build a blanket fort now? Just like that, she was ready to move forward. Kids have a way of doing that, of choosing healing when adults are still stuck in blame and guilt. That afternoon, we built the biggest blanket fort our house had ever seen. It stretched from the living room to the kitchen. Blankets, sheets, chairs, sofa cushions, everything. It was a maze of tunnels and secret corners, with pillows stacked high and flashlights inside. Even Mom crawled in for a while, bringing cookies and milk, laughing with us like the world hadn't been turned upside down. For a few hours, it felt like we were just a family again. The weeks that followed were strange, somewhere between normal and not. I had regular meetings with Ms. Barbara, and sometimes Officer Charlotte. Mom took Daisy and me to see Dr. Peter twice a week. His office smelled like old books and had a fish tank that mesmerized Daisy. He helped me understand things I didn't even know I needed to understand. What Trevor did is called grooming, Dr. Peter said one day, pushing his glasses up his nose. He broke down your instincts, made harmful things seem normal, and used your need for connection against you. But I still made the choices, I said. I still hurt her. Yes, he said gently. You did. And taking responsibility is part of healing. But context matters. It doesn't excuse what happened. It explains it, so you can move forward and make sure it never happens again. Meanwhile, Trevor stayed with Uncle Bruce. Mom visited him a few times, but every time she came back, she looked a little more tired. She never told me much, just said Trevor was refusing to take responsibility. One night, I overheard her on the phone saying he was blaming everything on brainwashing and claiming he was the real victim. School was hard. Mom arranged for me to do remote learning for a week, but eventually I had to go back. Walking through those doors that first morning was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Whispers followed me. People stared. Some avoided eye contact. My old best friend Mackenzie crossed the hall to avoid walking near me. Lunchtime was the worst. I sat alone, poking at my sandwich while people whispered nearby. I caught fragments. Something about hurting her sister, messages, juvenile center. None of them had the full story, but that didn't stop them from filling in the blanks. Still, there were small kindnesses. My English teacher, Ms. Winters, invited me to eat lunch in her room if I ever needed space. The school counselor, Mr. Davis, checked in with me every few days. And slowly, a few kids started talking to me again. Not the ones I used to know, but new ones who were willing to listen. A few weeks later, Mom sat Daisy and me down at the kitchen table. She looked calm but serious. There's going to be a hearing soon, she said. A judge will decide what happens next. You may both be asked to speak. My stomach flipped. Will Trevor be there? No, she said quickly. His case is separate. This hearing is just to make sure you both get the support you need. She reached across the table and took my hand, squeezing gently. Daisy, who had been coloring, paused. Is Trevor still a bad guy? She asked, her crayon hovering over a purple drawing that looked like a cat. Mom hesitated. Trevor has done some bad things, and he needs help. A lot of it. But right now it's safer for us if he doesn't live here. Daisy seemed satisfied with that. She went back to her drawing with the intense focus only a preschooler can have. But I saw something flicker in Mom's eyes. Grief, maybe. Not just for what Trevor had done, but for who she thought he was. It's a strange thing to mourn someone who's still alive. The morning of the hearing, Mom helped us get ready. She picked out a navy blue skirt and white blouse for me. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. Older, more serious. Daisy twirled in her yellow dress, giggling as she pointed at the little flowers. Look, Mom! Daisies for Daisy! Her joy, even in that moment, made something in my chest ache with love and protectiveness. The courthouse felt like another world. Cold marble floors, high ceilings, and security guards who barely smiled as they checked our bags. Every sound echoed. Every step felt heavy. And still, I held my head high. Because this time, I wasn't hiding from the truth. I was walking toward it. Daisy thought the metal detectors and security wands were part of a game, giggling as the guard waved the scanner near her. One of the guards actually smiled. A rare thing. And that helped calm my nerves. We met Virginia in the lobby. She explained that we wouldn't be going into a courtroom, just the judge's office, which made my chest unclench a little. Today, she looked more approachable, wearing a green dress instead of the bright yellow blouse from before, and she knelt down to Daisy's level to explain things in simple words. We're just going to talk to a nice lady, she said. She wants to help. Judge Peyton's office was warm and personal, nothing like I expected. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a polished wooden desk, family photos framed on every surface. One photo caught my eye, a young woman in a graduation cap, smiling like she'd just conquered the world. Judge Peyton herself was tall, with silver hair and gentle eyes behind stylish glasses. She didn't just talk to the adults in the room. She spoke directly to us. She asked about how we were doing, how therapy was going, what life at home looked like now. When it was my turn, I told her everything. My voice shook, but I kept going. I told her how Trevor would praise me when I was cruel, how he made me feel important when I followed his lead. I told her about the fake texts, the threats, the long, slow manipulation that twisted everything I thought I understood. She listened, really listened. No judgment, just care. When I finished, she asked something I wasn't expecting. What do you think should happen now? I hesitated, then said, I think I should keep seeing Dr. Peter. It helps. And I think Trevor needs help too. Not just punishment, real help. The moment I said it, I realized I meant it. Judge Peyton gave a small, thoughtful smile and nodded. She turned to Daisy next and asked her gentle, simpler questions. Daisy, in all her 4-year-old honesty, said, Trevor was mean and made my sister be mean. But she's not mean now. She's my best friend again. Then she grinned, proudly showing the little gap where she'd just lost her first tooth. After the hearing, Judge Peyton issued what Virginia called a disposition order. We sat on a stone bench outside the courthouse while Virginia explained. The sun was warm, the air smelled like turning leaves, and everything felt lighter. I would stay home, continue therapy, and volunteer at a local after-school program. Trevor, meanwhile, would be placed in a juvenile rehabilitation facility for at least 6 months, where he'd get counseling and education. Most importantly, he wouldn't be allowed to contact me or Daisy for a long time. If he ever wanted to return home, there would be another hearing first, one that focused on safety. I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Trevor had been my older brother, the person I once looked up to. But he had also been the person who broke me. I missed the version of him I used to believe in. I think Mom did too. Slowly, life began to rebuild itself. School was still awkward. Some classmates whispered behind my back, while others asked questions that were too blunt, too invasive. Mackenzie, my former best friend, started saying hi in the halls, but it wasn't the same. Our friendship had faded into something quieter, more distant, but I made new friends. That fall, a girl named Winter transferred in from California. She wore hoodies that were too thin for the chilly Midwest, had blue streaks in her hair, and a backpack covered in weird pins. She didn't know anything about my past, just that we both loved the same obscure anime. Being around her felt like breathing fresh air after being stuck underwater. At home, things changed in good ways. Mom arranged a new schedule at work so she could be around more. We had dinner together every night, a small thing that felt huge. She asked real questions, listened closely, and made sure Daisy and I always knew we were safe. She even installed a security system, motion lights, cameras, just in case. I didn't realize how much peace that would bring until I saw the little blinking light by the front door each night. My community service surprised me. I'd expected it to be hard, maybe even shameful, but it wasn't. I worked with kids, helped them with homework and crafts, and discovered something unexpected. I was good at it. There was one little boy, Marcus, who reminded me of Daisy, full of questions and boundless energy. Helping him with his reading became the highlight of my week. Dr. Peter helped me understand the bigger picture too. How Trevor had been hurt before he ever hurt me. How our father had passed down his pain in silence and shadows. And how Trevor had kept that cycle going. People who are hurting sometimes hurt others, Dr. Peter told me. But people who heal, they can help others heal too. That's the path you're on now. About 4 months after Trevor was sent away, Mom got a letter. She read it alone first, sitting at the kitchen table in silence. Then she asked if I wanted to read it too. I wasn't sure, but I said yes. She placed the envelope in front of me like it might burst open. We sat there together, the quiet stretching out like a held breath. And slowly, I reached for it. The letter was short, and felt like it had been written more out of obligation than sincerity. The handwriting was unmistakably Trevor's. That same sharp, slanted script I used to see on birthday cards and gift tags. He said he was reflecting on what happened and learning about the harm he'd caused. He didn't really apologize, not directly, but mentioned that he hoped we might someday have a healthier relationship. I wasn't sure how to feel. Part of me wanted to crumple the letter and toss it in the trash. But another part, the one that still remembered him as my older brother before everything shattered, felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe he was changing. Or maybe he just wanted us to believe he was. Mom didn't pressure me to respond, and I didn't. I wasn't ready. I might never be. Dr. Peter had told me something that stuck with me. Forgiveness isn't a requirement for healing. Sometimes, the most important thing is setting boundaries. As the months passed, I kept an eye on Daisy, watching for signs that what we'd been through had left permanent scars. Sometimes she'd cry in her sleep, whispering things I couldn't always understand. Sometimes she'd go quiet during movies if siblings were fighting on screen. But mostly, she thrived. She made friends at preschool, learned how to write her name, though she still reversed the S. She became obsessed with dinosaurs, carrying a stuffed T-Rex with her everywhere she went. The bruises faded. The light in her eyes didn't. My healing was slower. Some days I felt like I was drowning in guilt. I'd catch sight of the faint marks on Daisy's arms and feel sick all over again. But there were good days too. Days where I helped her read bedtime stories, where we laughed at cartoons, where I caught myself smiling and didn't feel guilty about it. Winter and I grew closer. We spent weekends binging anime, doodling side by side in sketchbooks, sharing snacks and secrets. Her house became my second home, a place where I wasn't that girl from the story, just me. 6 months after Trevor left, Mom got a call. He was being transferred to a halfway house. He'd have a strict schedule, mandatory counseling, and, most importantly, no direct contact with us. Any communication would go through a caseworker named Benjamin. Benjamin had a deep, calm voice and treated Mom with respect. He didn't sugarcoat Trevor's progress, but he wasn't cruel either. Just honest. Still, hearing Trevor was being released triggered something in me. The fear returned. I started jumping at small sounds. I couldn't fall asleep without checking the front door. Twice. Mom noticed. And one morning, over cereal, she said, "Let's get away for a bit." So we went to Florida, just the 3 of us, to visit Grandma. We spent 2 weeks swimming in the ocean, eating ice cream every day and laughing in the sunshine. It felt like parts of us were being rinsed clean. When we got back, another letter was waiting. But this one felt different. The handwriting was softer, looser, like the Trevor I remembered before everything went wrong. He wrote about therapy, about facing the anger he'd held since our dad left. He admitted everything. The manipulation, the lies, how he'd used me to hurt Daisy. And this time, he actually said the words, "I was supposed to protect you. Instead, I broke something that might never fully heal." I'm sorry. And I know sorry isn't enough. I read that letter 3 times. Not because I believed him, not completely, but because it felt different. There were smudges where he'd crossed things out. Sentences that didn't quite flow, like he'd struggled to be honest. Like he hadn't rehearsed it this time. Dr. Peter helped me decide what to do. I wrote back. Not with forgiveness, not yet. But I told him I got his letter. I told him about my own therapy, about the kids I helped at the community center. I told him about winter and how I'd started learning to draw manga. I told him I hoped he kept working on himself. It wasn't a bridge, not really, but maybe it was a rope, tied to something solid, stretching over the damage he caused. One step at a time. As my 13th birthday approached, Mom asked what I wanted to do. In the past, birthdays were quiet. A cake, a movie, maybe a present. But this year felt different. This year felt like something we survived. I want to have a real party, I told her, with friends. And I want to invite Julia and her kids too. She looked surprised, then smiled. Anyone else? We were at the kitchen table, Daisy between us, joyfully drowning her pancakes in syrup. I thought for a moment. The kids from the community center, and Miss Barbara, and Dr. Peter. The list grew. More people than I expected. More people than I realized I had in my corner. We planned it together, sent out invitations, decorated the backyard with balloons and purple streamers. Daisy insisted on purple because it was my favorite. The day of the party, the sun was warm, but not hot. A gentle breeze made the streamers dance, and for the first time in a long time, I looked around at everyone, smiling, talking, safe, and thought, this is what healing looks like. Winter arrived early to help set up. She handed me a homemade card covered in anime-style sketches of us battling dragons and exploring galaxies. I nearly cried just looking at it. Then came the kids from the community center, all in a pack, led by their program director. They gave me a handmade collage, photos of us together, surrounded by bright drawings and little messages. Marcus had drawn a picture of me helping him read, with "thank you" printed carefully underneath. Ms. Barbara came dressed down for once in jeans and a soft sweater. She handed me a gift wrapped in silver paper, a journal with a little lock and key. For your thoughts, she said simply. Dr. Peter brought his golden retriever, who instantly became Daisy's best friend. She spent half the party tossing a tennis ball across the yard and laughing so hard she kept falling over. Julia came with her toddlers, who made a beeline for the snack table. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm proud of you." And standing there, surrounded by laughter, warm sunlight, and people who truly knew me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Pride. Not the kind Trevor used to feed me, twisted and conditional, but real pride. The kind that grows from surviving something hard and choosing to become better, not bitter. Mom brought out the cake. Chocolate with purple frosting and little anime characters drawn by Winter. 13 candles flickered in the breeze as everyone sang. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I didn't wish for toys or clothes or anything like that. I wished for healing, for Daisy, for Mom, for me. Even, in a complicated way, for Trevor. I blew out the candles in one breath. Everyone cheered. As Mom began cutting the cake, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Benjamin, Trevor's caseworker. "Trevor asked me to wish you a happy birthday. He hopes you're having a good day." I stared at it for a long time. So many emotions swirled in me. Confusion, anger, sadness, and maybe, somewhere deep down, something like hope. Then I turned off my phone. Today wasn't about Trevor. It was about everyone else. About the people who helped me rebuild. About where I was now, not where I had been. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Daisy ran up, her face smeared with frosting, a purple streak down the front of her yellow dress. "Was this the best birthday ever?" she asked, eyes wide and full of joy. I smiled and knelt to wipe her sticky cheeks. "Yeah," I said. "It really was." That night, after Daisy had fallen asleep and the backyard was quiet again, Mom and I sat together on the porch swing. Some balloons were starting to sag. The streamers hung loose in the still air. Fireflies blinked around us like tiny lanterns. "I'm proud of you," Mom said softly. "You know that, right?" I leaned my head on her shoulder and nodded. "I know." The swing creaked beneath us, the same old sound from my childhood, and we sat in silence for a while. Then I asked the question I'd been carrying quietly all day. "Do you think Trevor will ever come home?" Mom sighed and tightened her arm around me. I don't know, she said honestly. That depends on a lot, his progress, what the doctors say. But most importantly, how you and Daisy feel. If you don't feel safe, he won't come back. I don't think I'm ready, I whispered. Maybe someday, but not now. Then not now, she said firmly. Your safety comes first. Always. As we went inside, I thought about how much had changed, how close I'd come to becoming someone I wouldn't recognize, how Trevor had pulled the strings for so long, but also how much growth had happened, how much love had come out of something so dark. We weren't fixed. We were still healing. There would be more therapy, more hard conversations, more tears. But there was also something else now. Hope. Later, before bed, I picked up the journal from Ms. Barbara. I opened to the first page and began to write. Not about Trevor, not about pain, but about the party, about winter, about Marcus, about Dr. Peter's dog, about Daisy's frosting-covered face, about Mom's quiet strength, and about the person I was becoming, one day at a time.